Hey, what's up, Liberty lovers? This is your Felony Friday host, John Odermatt. If this is your first time listening to this show or to the Lions of Liberty podcast as a whole, just put your fingers in your ear holes and go la 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 for the next 15, 20 seconds. Because I just want to remind our longtime listeners, our longest time fans, if you have not given us a 5-star rating and left a review on Apple Podcasts, sometimes called iTunes, please go do that now. Leave that 5-star, leave that rating, and ask us a question, because we're looking to gather up a whole gaggle of questions together and eventually here have another show, a bonus show in the main feed dedicated to answering your questions. So go do it right now.
Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers, welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here at Lions of Liberty, we have a bit of a variety channel. My Friday show, Felony Friday, is one of the great shows, but there's two more on Monday and Wednesday. Monday's show hosted by Mark Clare, Wednesday by Brian McWilliams. They both bring their own flavor and flair to the podcasting game. Check those out. Subscribe to Lions of Liberty on your podcasting app to get all three. And today's episode of Felony Friday is another great one. I have an awesome guest lined up who is going to share another story of injustice in the criminal justice system. And we're going to shine a light, and we are going to keep the momentum going for change in the criminal justice system. So share this show, tell a friend, text it to a friend, tell a stranger on the street. I don't care. Enjoy today's show. On today's episode of Felony Friday, I am joined by June Bolen. June is here today to advocate for clemency for her husband, John, who is currently incarcerated. John is serving a life sentence without parole for his part in a conspiracy to import 5 or more kilos, attempt to import 5 or more kilos, conspiracy to possess 5 or more kilos. We'll get into the whole story and what happened with his arrest, with his conviction, and with his sentence. June, welcome to Felony Friday.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, June. And I've had a few of my past guests in the past 8 or so episodes, or I should say 3 of my past guests from my past eight or few episodes, I think had either had served time with your husband or knew about him through other people. One that comes to mind is Rufus Rochelle. Did he think he did time with your husband?
Yes, they were together at the Coleman Medium. Yes.
Okay. And Chad Marks?
I don't think they ever served time together. I think that's just one of the way networking works. You know, now we've reached out to more people than we've ever known who are now friends and advocates for John as well.
Right. So, the reason you're here today is to advocate for your husband, to get word out about his sentence, about a huge injustice that's going on. That is, obviously he's in prison. It's torn your family apart, and I want to give you, the chance to really share the truth here and to get the word out what happened, and shine a light on the injustice that your husband is suffering. So before we get into his arrest and everything that happened with the trial and all that, if we could kind of turn back the clock and go to the time before John was arrested and did anything happen, if you could kind of paint the picture of what your life was like back then.
I guess I would say it's typical, but I don't really think it is. He's kind of a natural entrepreneur, so life has always been an adventure with John. We met in high school. Our first date was prom. I happened to ask him, so who are you going to prom with? And he said, you remember? And that was actually how he asked me to go to prom. So we went to our senior prom together. That was our first date. And we've been together ever since. We just have been inseparable. we were friends a little bit, before that, having same classes together and things like that. But senior year was the year, and we were inseparable, literally inseparable after that. I went on, we both went to college and did some college, some community college. He went to FIT for a while, but his passion was always fishing, and he really always wanted to own and run a charter boat business. Mm-hmm. So that was always on his mind as what his ultimate goal would be. And I just supported him. The only real thing I wanted to be in life was a mom. I didn't have any like big dream like he had. So I just was there behind him all the way. And we owned different businesses, but the final business that he owned was his charter business. He achieved his dream, and he was really good at it. He just has a knack for some reason with the fish. It's like he can read the water. He knows where they are. And he made a lot of people very happy on charter fishing trips locally here in Florida. And then he started fishing over in the Bahamas as well. And during the early years, 98, we had our son. We have one son together. So when John started taking more trips across to the Bahamas, we tried to go as much as we could together and stay together. And then we would come home and spend as much time as we could, because it was tough when he was away. And like I said, we were kind of inseparable. But during 2004, I think it was, we had some serious hurricanes come through and kind of destroy the marinas. They damaged our house, my mother-in-law's house, my grandmother-in-law's house. So things were tough then. That was our only business. And having been fishing in the Bahamas, he decided to go there to fish more out of the Bahamas, because it was easier to get to the fishing and cheaper in a sense than fishing from here. And like I said, the marinas were destroyed. Right. So
and eventually, this was you said 2000, early 2000s?
2004, yeah, 2004 I think is when they came through. And it was a couple of years before things got up and running back here again, unfortunately. But eventually he was approached by somebody in the Bahamas, trying to encourage him to make some easy money, and it wasn't hard to encourage him, I guess. He decided to do it, decided to allow his boat to be used to transport here to Florida cocaine. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately.
And this is the first, he had no prior criminal record of any kind. This wasn't something he'd done before.
No, he never even has had a speeding ticket. He's never been in trouble with anything. I think it was the financial pressure, bills that were mounting. He didn't want to lose his business. I think part of it was probably pride too. And unfortunately, he saw it as an easy way to help out of that situation, and didn't feel like it was like he was really doing anything wrong other than allowing his boat to be used.
So was it a sting operation, or how did he ultimately get caught?
Ultimately, they were bringing the boat back from the Bahamas. He was here in the States. They had the boat over there, and they were bringing them back, making a trip back here to the States, and the boat was damaged, and the Coast Guard had pulled them over. I guess I don't know that it was a sting, but it almost feels like it could have been, the way things went down, and the more you learn later. But the Coast Guard pulled them over, I think because of their suspicion. I don't know if they were just suspicious of the boat in general, or its speed, or what it was that drew them to the boat. And then ultimately, I think is what they did is they still came here to Florida, and that's when the local authorities were called down to the marina, where they did a search, and that's where they found the drugs with a canine.
So John was not even on the boat when
No.
it was...
No, never. Yeah.
How did things play out from there?
You're going to have to forgive me, because it's been a long time, and that was probably the worst time of my life, of course.
I can imagine.
And a lot of things for me are more of a blur. So hopefully one day John can join you and give you better details of everything, hopefully soon. But from my understanding, the DEA, like I said, came and used the dogs, and that's when the drugs were found. So they arrested the Bahamians that were on the boat. They called John down. John went down and talked to them. I think it was an ICE agent and a DEA agent, and he came home. We didn't really hear anything about it after that from them, but we did have a friend who was a lawyer, so we called him right away, and he started helping John find out what was going on, what were the charges going to be, and those kind of things. So then it ultimately led to those two testifying against John, and they took a plea deal. John ended up going to trial, and so they testified against John.
What did they testify to?
That the crazy thing is, their testimony was he just allowed his boat to be used. He never had possession of the drugs. He never saw the drugs. He didn't know where they were going, where they were coming from. But yet they still charged John because it was a conspiracy charge. Mm-hmm. They still charged him with, and I think because he was the owner of the boat, they charged him basically for everything. Like he's this big kingpin responsible for all these drugs. And we didn't have the best representation. I mean, that was our fault, unfortunately. But regardless, the system in general, it was a horrible education really quickly in our unjust justice system.
Yeah,
for sure.
So was John offered a plea deal?
No,
he was not. Wow.
No.
Oh man.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our lawyers at the time, John thought he was facing 40 years in prison, which is really life when you're 35 years old. And so decided to go to trial. That's how he ended up going to trial. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if it was just the our ineffectiveness of our lawyers not being able to arrange a plea deal, or maybe the prosecutor, it was a small town called Fort Pierce in Florida, and maybe she was just trying to make a name for herself. I don't know why they never offered him anything. During the trial, the DEA agent that testified was one of those agents that they use for testifying, not necessarily involved in the case.
Right.
And he told us in the hallway, he said, I don't know. I don't think they have this one, talking about the prosecutor. Most of the people involved through the court system didn't think they were going to win their case, and they did. They won. Wow. You don't really lose. The government doesn't lose too many cases, for sure.
Yeah, they win like 90% or something, and go to plea in the first place.
Yes.
But then on top of that, they rarely ever lose.
Yes. Yep.
Even if people are innocent, they rarely ever lose.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it's probably painful for you to recount this, but I mean, John, your husband, is going away to prison on a life sentence. What was, what sort of have you leaned on, and what's brought you through these years?
Definitely family. I don't know what we would have done without the support of our family. We have a tight-knit, small family. There's a few of us, but we are close. And I mean, I was a total wreck. I mean, just a wreck. I wish I could go back and tell myself then, come on, focus, stay strong, but it's unfathomable thinking that you will never be with this person again, that it's like a death, but that person is still there. You just can't touch them and be with them and have them enjoy all those things in life that everybody else gets to enjoy. And I'm not saying, he shouldn't have served time. That's reasonable, but not 4 life sentences. He was given a life sentence for each of those counts. They're run concurrently, but technically he has 4 life sentences. And we don't have a parole system anymore. So there's no chance for parole. And I think it was like life sentence plus 5 years probation or something crazy like that. So it was, I don't think I've wrapped my head around it still, to be honest. I don't think I ever accepted it in my heart as that's it. I just never fully said, oh, well, he's in for life. He did. In fact, some of the first visits that we had together, we cried all the time, of course, in the beginning, and he would say, I'm so sorry, and I'm going to die here in prison. And I would just keep telling him, you don't know that. I mean, things change all the time. Laws could change. Probation could come back. You never know what's going to happen. And I am forever the optimist, but I just didn't believe it. I just didn't believe it to be true. I know he's going to be home. I know we'll be back together. Our family can heal and move forward together, start a new chapter. I'm not saying it hasn't been tough. It's definitely been difficult, but I just try to stay positive and try to keep him positive. And I mean, look, things have changed. The whole country seems to understand a little bit better now what our unjust system is. It's not what they think. A lot of people used to say, you do the crime, you do the time. That was such a popular thing to say. And now people, I think, because so many families have been affected, they feel it now. They see with their own eyes what's happening. And it's changing. Things are happening for sure.
Hey, just want to take a real quick minute here to talk about another libertarian podcast. If you haven't listened to Good Morning Liberty, it's a 5-day per week show. Nate and Charlie, I don't know how they do it, 5 days per week, pumping out fantastic content. Also, their Twitter game, I have to say, I've been following them on Twitter, is on point. At Good AM Liberty. Check it out. I don't know if it's Nate or Charlie running the account, but whichever one is doing it, fantastic job. Also, their show. So what is their show? They are trying to really take the onus of trying to change people's minds of how people view libertarians. And they're trying to do this by leading with a message of compassion first, rather than, pounding on your keyboard and screaming at people like libertarians love to do. So they're looking at ways in which policies impact people and using the principles of liberty to provide compassionate solutions. They both have backgrounds in healthcare. They own a healthcare IT company. Check it out, Good Morning Liberty, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to their podcast by going to bernielies.com, which so awesome redirects right to their podcast links page. So check that out. Good Morning Liberty.
Yeah, it's been a slow evolution, but I think you hit the nail on the head there, because it seems like everybody at least knows someone. It might not be someone in their direct family, but they know of someone that's been impacted by a family member or a friend who's incarcerated. It's touched because we have by far the highest incarcerated percent of population in the world.
In the world, yeah.
So it's crazy.
It is.
Turning ahead and looking at the situation now with the possibility for clemency for John, where does that stand? And does the current situation with COVID and the CARES Act, is that a potential path?
We're hoping so. He did file a petition for compassionate release. We haven't had the best luck with the court system down there. And the compassionate release goes back to that same sitting judge, unfortunately. But he made a good argument, and he has a good argument for compassionate release, including some things that have changed because of the First Step Act. He probably wouldn't have been sentenced with what he was sentenced with some of those changes. So he brought up some good, valid points. And I actually had a phone call from a probation officer asking, what would be the plans? Where would he stay? Where am I? How are we? Those type of questions. So that was promising. I'm hoping the judge will do the right thing, but if not, Amy Pova from CanDo for Clemency has been John's angel. She has been the best advocate for him for clemency with President Trump. We did file under President Obama, and unfortunately, at the very last month he was in office, John's petition for clemency through Obama was denied. I know they were overwhelmed with the number of clemency requests. And unfortunately, because he was charged as a leader organizer, that makes it more difficult, I'm sure, in their eyes to let somebody like that go. He's no El Chapo, but that's what, they've charged him as. So with President Trump, we have a tidal wave of support like we've never had before. I just spoke with Amy the other day, and I told her it's almost like you can feel the scale of justice changing, where before we just felt such the underdog and so forgotten, so limited on our potential, to do anything to bring him home. And just through her advocacy and all the friends that we've made through that, you could just feel it. It's palpable. The change that hopefully, I feel like it'll be soon. Something big will happen. And we've gotten him closer than he's ever gotten before. She's been able to speak with people in the White House, or who have, I don't know names and I don't get to know all the details, but I know some very important people have seen his name cross their desk. So I'm very hopeful that clemency will come for him. And he deserves it. I know I'm a little biased, but he's worked really hard to change his, I don't want to say change his character, because he's always been a very good man, a good, honest man. He just made a really foolish mistake. But I don't think he should go to prison for life for a mistake, and a nonviolent mistake, and never having made a mistake before like that. It just, to me, that sentence in itself was a cruel and unusual punishment. And any first-time nonviolent offender should never get a life sentence. Just never. It shouldn't even come into the conversation. It should.
100% agree. And when you were talking about before about how the scales are changing, and I agree with you that the scale of the justice system is changing, and people are, even people who I think are, in the past, you would think of them as more, law and order, pro-drug war type people, even people like that, like more so on the conservative side. I think that side is sort of becoming even more of the criminal justice reform advocacy. And, looking at, someone like John, who first-time offender, I mean, he served 12 years, going on 13 years for a first-time offense, totally nonviolent crime. What else do you want? I mean, what is more time going to do? It's seriously, like, is there anybody out there who can make some sort of case that another, completing a life sentence is somehow going to help the world in some way? No, it's not. I mean, getting him back into society and allowing him to add value and his entrepreneurial spirit and getting that back into the world, that's going to add value to society. So
yeah, definitely. Yes.
I don't know. I get fired up over
It's okay. Me too.
But I did want to, touch on a couple more things before I let you go. And this has been a great conversation, and I thank you for your time. But I just wanted you to let us know how John is doing right now in prison with COVID and everything that's going on there.
It's definitely been very scary. He works for the commissary. He's a clerk for the commissary. And during the whole first portion of COVID since February, they've been on a modified lockdown, but all the commissary workers were still working. They were having to go make the deliveries to all the units, and they had a lot of contact. So that worried me. But now they've even stopped that to almost like a total lockdown. And they asked John to choose, because he had two jobs. He's a mentor, and in the program, skills program with the prison, and he works with the doctor there. So he mentors people that have like a mental disability, or they just need some help with life skills. And so they asked him to choose. He needed to choose that, or he needed to choose working for the commissary. So he chose to stay in the mentor program. It's more rewarding, of course, than being a commissary clerk. But since then, so that was just the end of June, they completely locked down. And then they took his unit and made it the medical unit. So they moved all of them upstairs and put them in 3 men's cells now. So they added people to each of the cells. And it's definitely scary, because, the COs are still going home and coming back to the prison. And he just told me in a letter the other day that I got that the rumor is over 120 people have tested positive inmate-wise, but over 50 of the officers have. And when when that's who's bringing you your trays or for your bologna sandwich or your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that's what frightens me, is now they're in this contained area and receiving things from people who could possibly be infected. That's very scary, for sure. And they're just not equipped. I mean, they're barely equipped to deal with day-to-day medical issues that the inmates have. Half the time, they'll send them back to their unit with no treatment, because most of the time they're like, oh, not like you're faking it, but like it's not a legitimate reason to be here at sick call. So go on about your way. People have died, of course, because they've done that to them. They're just not equipped to handle a pandemic. I mean, we barely are out here, and now you put it in this contained system. It's frightening. And unfortunately, I just saw where a woman passed away from the Coleman camp.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible to, people, go to prison, but they shouldn't have to die in prison. We're better than that as a country. Where's our compassion? This is too much. It's too much. They need to change it for sure. A lot of things need to change, but right now we have a really good reason to get these people out.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. But before I let you go, June, I know you talked about Amy Pova and the CanDo Foundation, and Amy's been on this show, and just a incredible woman for everything that she does, for advocating for clemency for so many people. Just such a powerful and caring organization.
Yes.
But I just wanted to give you some time to talk about that. Are there any ways, I mean, if you want to talk about the CanDo Foundation more, that's great, but are there ways people can help raise awareness and help advocate for John?
Yes, he does have a change.org petition. You can just look up John Bolen on the petition there. That's one thing that she asked that we set up. He has a Facebook page. You can write senators and congressmen just, for general change, and definitely support organizations like Amy's. They do this out of the goodness of their heart, or because they were somehow affected or still affected by having someone in prison or having been in prison. They know like nobody else knows, and they are fighting for families, because prison doesn't just affect the person who goes to prison. It affects everybody, their family, their friends, the community. It's like, a spider web. It just keeps going, and it just affects so many people, and they are truly fighting. And Rufus, if it wasn't for Rufus, we wouldn't have ever met Amy. He is the one responsible for putting John in contact with Amy, and we're forever grateful. And he's a great advocate for John as well. He talks about him on Facebook all the time, and he just every time he talks to me, he says he's coming home. I'm telling you, he's coming home. There's no doubt in my mind. So those positive things, they mean a lot. And we have Malik, who works for Amy. He's been a great advocate for John. And now we have other new advocacy programs that are just popping up like crazy, which the more the better. The more the better, and supporting those organizations is very important. Especially with Amy, because CanDo will never ask you for a dime. They will never ask.
That's true. I should encourage that almost every episode for people to donate to the CanDo Foundation. That's a good point, because she does not.
She will not. Yep, she's awesome. Yep.
And the work, the amount of people that they've played a major role in getting their clemency, getting compassionate release. I don't even know how long the list is, but it's I'm sure it's over hundreds, maybe.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. I mean, and she's nonstop. I mean, it is a nonstop job for her, I think, 24/7.
Yeah. And we were just talking about Rufus, and I've only met Rufus the one time, having him on the show, but and I don't say, I say this 100%, from the heart, honest. One of the most genuine, authentic, just such a kind soul.
Yes.
So this is such a great person.
It really is.
But yeah, so June, when I first heard John's story, it's one of those stories that it just touches your heart. I mean, obviously this is the first time I've met you. I've never met John. And I wanted to immediately reach out to you and try to get you on the show to shine a light on this. So I will, continue to do anything that I can to help you out, to shine a light on this and advocate for John's clemency.
Thank you so much, and I really hope one day soon he can jump on this with you. And I mean, he didn't. I had to explain to him what a podcast was when I first went on one, so there'll be a lot of changes for him. But hopefully, you'll be able to meet him one day very soon.
Yeah, as soon as he gets out, he can come on the show whenever he's ready.
That'd be awesome.
All right, June. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much, John.
Hope you enjoyed that episode with another awesome guest here on Felony Friday. A couple things before you go about your day and scramble off to listen to your next podcast. Just want to remind you of a couple things. First of all, the Lions of Liberty Forum. Are you in it? Have you joined it? It's on Facebook. It's a great place to go to talk about the ideas of liberty, talk about criminal justice reform, all that great stuff. Just go to Facebook. You know that site, right? Just type in the top there, the search bar, Lions of Liberty Forum. It pops up. You click join. We let you in. Easy as that. Do it now. Also, for those of you who know me, who follow me on the social media, you know that I'm passionate about gut health, plant-based supplements, all that good stuff, really healing the body from the inside out. If you or someone you love is also interested in really natural healing, getting your gut healthy, overcoming things like anxiety, inflammation, IBS, or maybe you're just trying to lose a few pounds. So much is tied to our gut. 70% of our immunity resides in our gut. 90% of our serotonin is made in our gut. 50% of our dopamine. The gut-brain axis is a real thing, my friends. When they talk about a gut feeling, that's real because there's a connection there. You get the stress of feeling. You feel the upset stomach. That's a real thing. So if you're interested in learning more about gut health, probiotic systems, and healing from the inside out, striking the root, let me know. I just did a webinar on it this past week. So if you want to check it out, hit me up on my social medias on Instagram at John Odermatt or Twitter at John Odermatt, or you can find me on the Facebook. That's all I got for you guys today. And if you have anything for me, any topic suggestions for Felony Friday, as always, you can reach out to me, Felony Friday, at lionsofliberty.com. Hope you all have a great weekend. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.